This time around, we're going to take a look at the inner workings of the gradient tool, and more specifically, the gradient editor. If we click up here in the options bar, it shows us the list of available gradients, but if instead you click in the middle of that bar, it brings up this thing called the gradient editor, which is where we can edit the gradient. Gosh, what a concept that is. Edit the gradient. Unbelievable. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to, first of all, let's just pick some colors using our eyedropper from our image. I'll hold down Option or Alt to click on our second color somewhere in here, just so we get a couple of really plain Jane looking colors. Go to our gradient tool. Now, here's what happens when we pop up the list. This first gradient is foreground to background. So whatever my foreground and background colors, that's what will be used. When we have foreground to transparent, meaning that the gradient will start to paint and then gradually fade out, and then we have all the preset ones like black and white. So we're going to click on our gradient editor to take a look and see the makeup of our gradient. And basically it's a very simple concept. These are the color stops at the bottom where you say this is the color I want to start with, this is the color I want to end with. And currently you can see when I click on this bottom stop, it is basically saying I can use the foreground, background, or some other color. So I choose foreground. Right now it's already going foreground to background. Well, let's say I wanted to change this. I could also just double click right on it and say, actually, I'd like to use this color instead. So now I'm overriding the fact that it was the foreground color. I go to the end, double click on it, brings in the color picker again, and I can choose, again, some alternate color. To add a color stop is very simple. Just click. So if you want one a little around here somewhere, you just click once to add it. Then you can double click on it, or as you'll see in a moment, you can actually do that in one step. So let's throw a real curve at it here by putting in some orangey yellow kind of color in there. You can also just directly double click. So in other words, previously I just clicked first to add a stop and then to edit. If you just go ahead and double click, it does it in one step. So you can say I want this one and I want it here. Then you can choose the color. Take a look between any two color stops. You'll see there's a little diamond shape. That's determining kind of where the blend is between the two, and by default it's halfway between. So watch what happens if I drag this to the left. You'll see I'm getting less and less of this color stop and more of the other one, or vice versa. Let's go on this one so it'll be a little easier to see perhaps. There we go. See how it's getting less and less towards the red and more of the gold, or vice versa. By default it's always 50%. Now the other fact you can throw at a gradient is transparency. Right now it's 100% opaque, but if I chose to, I could click on top and say somewhere in the middle or so of this gradient I like it to start to become somewhat see-through, and as you start to drag the opacity you can start to see a little checkerboard effect. So if I were to actually use this gradient, it would go from red to yellow, somewhat see-through, back to kind of pinky, back to red again. It's very easy to continue to edit these. Anytime you don't want something, you just pull it off. I just pulled that opacity stop to say don't do that. What I would like to do is use this color again. So I'm going to hold down Option or Alt and drag it over here somewhere to reuse the same color, or copy the same color by dragging. So basically you can keep doing that as much as you like to get the effect that you want, and we're just going to pretend that that's actually attractive because right now it's kind of just a little weird. But here's the kind of weird part. You'll hopefully notice, and I'll stress it now to make sure you notice, I did not start by clicking New. This is kind of an odd name because really it should be almost called Save This New Gradient as opposed to New, because usually when you start with something new you click the New button first and then start working. In this case you make the gradient looking the way you want, then you click New, and it will add a new gradient preset that you now have available. So I click OK, and for example this is going to look weird, but just to show you, now with my gradient tool I can choose all the different types of gradients, a standard linear one and radial and so on. Let's just use a standard one, click and drag. You'll see, I remember I took away the opacity in the middle, so it's no longer got any see-through nature, but you can see the effects of my gradient. Now if I want to vary it, I simply drag the line a different way. If I drag a very short little line, it draws a very short little gradient, and the rest is just my solid color. Notice I'm not undoing here because I'm on a separate layer, so each time I'm just trying a different experiment. Let's switch to the radial one, try that one. You get the idea. Now where you can start to have fun with this is start to throw in some blend modes. For example, I just drew one gradient. What if I change the blend mode to multiply and then draw another one? You can see now it's going to start. Of course, multiply wasn't a very good choice because you can't see anything. Oh, that's because it didn't go to multiply, did it? There we go, multiply. I said multiply, but I didn't actually choose it. There we go. Now you can start to see all sorts of weird and wonderful possibilities because we're creating gradients on top of gradients. Now, of course, I could also do that with layers. But the key thing is to go ahead and experiment with creating your own gradients, and just make sure you save them by clicking this new button, and then they're in there and you can always continue to update them. You can even make a duplicate copy and so on. But you can start to do some interesting things with these as a beginning for backgrounds or whatever you want, simply by starting off this way. Now, in part 2, we'll look at how to take it a little step further. This is Dave Cross reminding you every time you try one of these techniques, just take your time, just, be cool, relax, everything will be fine. I'm Dave Cross, see you next time.